Damn, is the sun out already? Put in a long session at Lucky Chances. Can't wait to go over these hands. Let's get it. What's going on, guys? We are already on vlog number 4. Time has been flying by. We're obviously not at our normal recording station. That's because we moved. So unfortunately, I don't have my same setup right now, but once I get that up and going, the lighting's going to be a little bit better. Hopefully production is going to be a little bit better as well. But the show must go on. So today we go to a casino that's called Lucky Chances. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. If you watch Andrew Locke or Charles's videos, you've seen it. It is in a city called Colma. It's a little bit south of San Francisco. It is super cold. They have outdoor gaming, so if you do want to play over there, make sure you bundle up, wear a lot of layers of clothing, because it is really close to the bay. If you guys can, smash that like button, hit subscribe. It tremendously helps out the channel. I do read your guys' comments. There has been a lot of, we'll say, mixed feelings about the mystery hand. I do want to say that I still like the mystery hand, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to change the format. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're still going to give the reveal. And then we're going to go into another mystery hand early in the video. And then at the end of the video, we're actually going to reveal that mystery hand. Just so you guys don't have to wait a whole video just to see if you were right or not. Well, without further ado, let's go to the reveal. Let's see the new mystery hand, and let's hit the felt. So to recap the mystery hand, we are 6-handed in the small blind. There are 2 limpers, and we make it 40 to go. There's only 1 caller. The flop is 8-7-6, all clubs. It goes check, check. The turn brings the 4 of spades. We bet 25. He makes the call. River is the 7 of spades. We bet 40, and he makes the fold. Now let's just get to it. We have 2 queens, the queen of spades and the queen of hearts. There were 2 of you who were really close. We have Jim, who said queen of clubs, queen of spades, and Marissa, who said we had queen of diamonds, queen of spades. Both were halfway there, but Marissa's going to get the nod this time because she was closer, since the queen of clubs would have been a different story. Nice job, Marissa. I do want to elaborate on this hand for a bit. There wasn't a lot of action, and it seems kind of boring from the outside, but this hand is important because it illustrates the type of small to medium-sized pots that we get involved in numerous times in a session. Most of your hands in a session will be comprised of these types of hands. With this said, it's important to know how to navigate with these to optimize your ROI. My thought process is that this board smashes his range versus mine, so we check on the flop for pot control. He didn't show any aggressive action, so we can start to build a pot with what we think is the best hand. The 4 does bring the one-liner to the straight, but does his range really have a 5 in it? If it does, doesn't he just bet in position with the open ender after we show weakness and check? This board is super draw heavy, so if we have the best hand, let's get some money in. Once he calls the turn, we obviously want to safe river, which is the 7 of spades. River might seem bad, but in my eyes it's good. All the combos of likely 7s are 9-7, 8-7, 7-6, 7-5, and ace-7. He probably would have bet all those hands, except for maybe ace-7 on the flop, unless the ace was a club. Then he's betting all 7s. So he probably doesn't have a hand that can call, so we could check and have him bluff, or we can bet small and maybe have him call with some ace-highs. We obviously chose to bet, and he folded. Let me know what you guys would have done in the comments below. This video was created for entertainment purposes only. By no means am I a professional poker player. The following video is not intended to teach nor train, but rather to provide a look into my journey. Please gamble at your own risk. So since I was unable to record this hand, we're going to use it as the mystery hand. I have some random footage up just for background viewing purposes. So we're on the button, middle position and cutoff call. We call, and the big blind checks. So we're going 4 ways to the flop of ace, king, 10, rainbow. I will give some extra piece of info and say that we did flop a BDFD. It gets checked to middle position, and he bets 15. Only we call. So we're going heads up to the turn, which brings a 5 of diamonds. He bets 45 now. We call. The river is the 10 of hearts. He leads for 105. We raise and make it 250 to go. He calls, and he shows down queen jack. I think saying if we won or lost gives a little bit too much info away, so we're going to leave it at that and move on to the next session at hand while you think about what we might have. Alright, the second hand dealt at a brand new table to start off the session. We get ace king of hearts under the gun and we pop it to 15. Basically, everybody calls except for the hijack. We're almost going to family pot, so with everybody and their mom, we see the flop, and it is jack 8 deuce with 2 hearts. We flop 2 overs plus the NFD. It gets checked to us, and we try to thin the field without risking too much. We place a bet of $30. It kind of does a trick, and it gets folded to the small blind, who is the only caller. So we're going heads up to the turn, which is the 2 of diamonds. He checks again. Now we have 2 viable options. We can check, or we can bet a decent amount to push him off a hand like ace 8 or pocket 3s through 7s. It's hard to get a jack to fold here unless we size way up. Hard for us to put him on a condensed range here since the board texture didn't really change. So we just check back. The river brings the 9 of diamonds. Now the backdoor flush came in, and all the straight draws either hit or made a pair. So there's a million combos that could beat us here. We're just done with this hand. He checks, and we check back. He doesn't want to show his hand, though, so we table ours, and it's actually good enough to be awarded this pot. We have 1 black, 1 red in the hijack. There's a limp under the gun, and we make it 25 to go. The cutoff calls, it gets folded to the small blind, he calls, and the under the gun limper calls. So we are going 4 ways to the flop, which is 10, 7, deuce, rainbow. Now the small blind leads out for 25. This is a pretty unorthodox play. It's a relatively small size bet, possibly to test the temperature of the field and the PFR. Not too sure what to think of this yet. The limper calls, and now the action is on us. We could close the action and just call, navigate in position with a premium hand, keeping all 10s in. There aren't that many draws except for 9-8. Since he led into us, let's see how strong he is. We raise to 150. He thinks for a bit and shoves the rest of his chips into the middle of the table. At this point, it's hard for us to think we're good. It's a dry flop with only 1 real draw, so he's repping a big hand after he leads into us. We raise, and he bets it all. Maybe the small lead was to entice us to do exactly what he wanted. Maybe we fell for the trap. Still, I mean, we're less than 100 big blinds deep, and it's going to be hard for us to fold aces in this spot. We make the call. The board runs out. Queen of diamonds, 4 of clubs. He shows king 10. We scoop a nice size pot. Now we're in the cutoff with king queen off in a straddled pot. The hijack limps, and we raise to 40. It folds to the straddler, he calls, and the limper calls. So now we're going 3 ways to the flop, which is ace, king, 6, rainbow. It checks to us, and we just check behind. With only second pair nut kicker, we can navigate this board without having to bloat the pot. There's a lot of times where the players up front will check for pot control with ace X. With that said, the turn is a good card for us. It's the ace of hearts, especially when both players check to us again. Now we feel we're ahead and need to extract some value. We fire out a bet of 55. The bet is small, but maybe we'll get somebody with 2 paint cards to call and hit a pair on the river. The straddler calls and the hijack folds. So going heads up to the river, which brings the 7 of spades. Now it gets interesting. The straddler leads 100 into us. He's basically repping the ace. Would he have checked both streets and then fire a value-heavy bet of a little less than half pot without an ace? We've been on the table with this particular player for a while now, and he's shown some tendencies to pull the trigger when he finds very thin fold equity. With that said, we look this guy up and make the call. He says, "You're good," and we show down the winning hand. In this next hand, we look down at 2 jacks in the hijack. Under the gun limps and low jack raises to 25. It's his first hand that he plays after sitting down, so we don't really know how he plays yet. We take the lower variance route and just flat his raise. But then we get punished and allow more callers than the AT&T network. The button, small blind, big blind, and limper all call. This is what we get for not 3-betting pre. The flop comes down, ace 10-5, all diamonds. Now, we do have a flush draw, but it's the third nuts. And with this many people in, it's hard to win. So it gets checked to the PFR, and he bets 25. A pretty small bet. We call, and the small blind and big blind come along as well. We're going 4 ways to the turn, which brings the queen of clubs. Now the small blind leads for 125. What the hell? It folds to us, and we just put in the fold as well. Very rarely is that player going to show up with less than a monster. Check call leading into 3 other players on that type of board. He rakes in the pot and shows the table that he had king jack offsuit, no diamonds. A few minutes later, we pick up jacks again. This time it's on the button. There is an early position limp and the cutoff over limps. We make it 35 to go. The small blind and cutoff both call. So we are going 3 ways to the flop, which is 8, 7, 7, 2 diamonds. It gets checked to us and we bet 45. This is a pretty good flop for us since we flopped an overpair in position. The small blind folds and the cutoff calls. We do have to be careful now because he could have a 7 in his range, but there are a lot of draws here too. Well, it doesn't matter when the turn brings the jack of hearts. Let's go! He checks once again, and he has about 240 behind. We want to find a way to get his stack in there by the river, so we bet a little less than half his stack. We fire out 105. If he calls here and he has any piece, he's not going to be able to fold the river. Well, we don't have to worry about that happening. He moves all of his chips toward the middle and we basically beat him to the pot, snap calling him. The river brings the 8 of clubs and we just show our full house. He says good hand and shows that he hit the straight on the turn, 10-9 off. The very next hand, I barely have time to gather my chips and reset the camera when we pick up queen jack of spades in the cutoff. Middle position raises to 20. We make the call. The small blind now 3 bets to 50. It's such a small raise. I'm not too sure what he's trying to accomplish here. Weirdly enough, middle position doesn't call. So we make the call and we're going heads up to the flop, which comes down queen, queen, 7, rainbow. Are you kidding me? He checks to us and I'm thinking, what can he have? Ace high, a medium to big pair. Whatever it is, we want to put some money in there. We down bet to 30 to keep his range wide and to have him continue with this hand. He makes the call. The turn is the 10 of hearts. This is a pretty good card. Now we're only scared of pocket 10s, but we have to find out where he's at in this hand. We bet 50. Again, small, but it keeps him from folding pairs and possibly ace high with a Broadway draw now. He just calls once again. At this point, we feel good and we just want a clean river. He has about 270 behind. The river is the 10 of clubs. He checks a third time, and now we have determined that if he 3-bet us pre, check call 2 streets, especially on a queen, queen, 7 board, he's probably going to finish this hand at showdown. He probably has a value hand, but just not a queen. So we ship it all in for his remaining stack. He thinks for a bit and eventually calls. We show our cards. He taps the table before folding his cards face up, and he shows 2 black aces. So this is an interesting hand that we get involved with. We have ace king off in the small blind in a straddled pot. It's five-handed at this point, and the button raises to 35. We make the call, along with the big blind and the straddler. We probably should have 3-bet this hand, but the table was very sticky at this point, and I didn't want to play OOP if I whiffed this board. So we go 4 ways to the flop of Ace 9-3 Rainbow. This is the perfect board for our hand. It gets checked to the PFR, and he places a bet of 55. We just flat to keep all of his weaker Ace-X hands in. There are no draws here, so if we were to check raise, it would show way too much strength. Well, it gets to the small blind, and it looks like he wants to play for more than 55. He raises to 235. The PFR flats, and now we have a big decision. If we're going to go with this hand, and we think we're ahead, we're going to have to move it all in. But what can we beat, and what draws are out there? The simple answer is nothing. It's kind of a tough laydown, but we just cannot continue with this hand. We fold, and the turn brings 7 of spades. The straddler now leads ships for 300 plus, and the PFR thinks for about 30, 45 seconds, and eventually makes the call. The river is the queen of hearts. The straddler shows Ace-9 for 2 pair, which makes sense. But now the button shows Ace-Queen for a rivered top 2 pair. Wow, that was nasty. Either way, we made the correct decision to fold, and we pat ourselves on the back. Now we have Ace-7 of diamonds in the cutoff. It's 6-handed. There's 1 limper, and we raise to $20. The button calls, and the small blind min 3-bets us to 40. I mean, we can't fold here, so the limper calls, we call, and the button calls. We are going 4 ways to the flop, which is 9-3 deuce, 2 diamonds. We flop the NFD with 1 over. Small blind leads out for a decent sized bet of 100, leaving himself with about 330 behind. It's a little too loose to ship on him. With that 100 bet, I don't know how much fold equity there is. He did just 3-bet pre and lead into the field with a good sized bet. Limper folds, and now it's up to us. We make the call, and the button folds. The turn is a cool one. It's the 7 of spades. Now we just hit a pair for some additional equity. Once again, he leads out. This time with a bet of 200, leaving himself with about 130. He's basically saying that he's not folding to anything here. We could fold, but we could also be ahead of his range. I know it sounds weird, but this particular player was being a little splashy at the table and was tilted from previous hands, especially losing Ace-9 to Ace-Queen the hand before. Well, we make the call. We want a diamond. Let's go diamond, let's go diamond, let's go diamond. It is the King of Clubs. Great. Well, he checks, and we get a sudden burst of confidence back, actually. Maybe our read was right, and he has nothing. Just blasting off with no pair. We quickly get deflated after he tables Queen-9 off. Dang, we got owned. In this next hand, we look down at Ace-Jack off on the button. Under the gun +1 raises to 20. We call, and the big blind calls. 3 ways to the flop, which is King-King for Rainbow. It gets checked to us, and now we feel like we have the best hand. We fire out a bet of $30. Both call. Okay, now we don't feel like we have the best hand. The turn brings the Ace of Hearts. Both check again. We improve, but still lose to a king. The PFR probably doesn't have a king here, but the big blind might. So we check back. The river is a third king. It's the King of Hearts. They both check a third time. This is a spot where we look to get some thin value against medium pocket pairs and underboats with a 4. If one of them check raise us, we might have to make the exploitative fold. We figure we can get $45 out of them, so that's what we bet. The big blind calls pretty quickly, and under the gun +1 folds. We show, and we take it down. Here we go. Now we have a premium holding. We have 2 kings under the gun. We raise it to 20. The cutoff and the button call. It gets the big blind, and he decides he wants to play for more. He makes it 135 to go. He has about 380 behind. It gets back to us, and I want him to think that I am pondering a call, but all I'm really thinking about is Vegas and the effing Mirage. Let's try to get all the money in. We 4-bet to 400 total. It folds to him and he just calls, leaving himself with 115 behind. He obviously doesn't have aces, so let's see a flop. Flop is King, Jack, Deuce, Rainbow. We couldn't have asked for a better flop. Let's get all his chips. We pile the rest in and he insta-calls. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. The river is the 9 of diamonds. Wait, this is not the runout we wanted. He quickly turns over ace queen, the nuts. Are you kidding me? Wow, this one hurt. All right, let's get to the mystery hand. What do you think we had? Let's find out. We had 10-7 of diamonds. Did you get it right? Comment below what you thought we had. Be honest now. I'm going to break down how you could have gotten this right and what my thought process was. So, with us limping the button, you can count out all pocket aces, kings, and 10s. Also, since I did say that we had a BDFD, that means we don't have any type of pocket pairs. We made the call on the flop, so we either have a piece of that board or a draw. Only draws are Queen X and Jack X holdings. The turn comes the 5 of diamonds, so with some deductive reasoning, you could possibly assume that we have a diamond draw as well, since I mentioned we have a backdoor flush, which means we can't have any combos of kings. We also called a bet of 45 on the turn, which we probably wouldn't have with just a gut shot. So now Queen X and Jack X holdings are a very low possibility unless paired with an ace or 10. Now the river is a 10 of hearts. He leads for 105 and we raise. At this point, once we raise, we could have slow played Queen Jack, but most likely would have raised the turn. So our hand comprises of bluffs and 10s. It's such a value heavy raise that bluffs are probably out of the picture unless we're in a leveling war with the opponent. So we are heavily weighted towards 10x of diamonds. Now you're probably asking, why would we raise this river? The guy showed aggression the whole way through. Well, my thought process was that unless he had exactly Queen Jack, we could get value out of all aces since the king was going to play as the kicker. He could have exactly King 10 or Ace 10, but at that point, we would be in raise fold mode and he would have probably raised the river. In the end, we value owned ourselves, but I feel that this was a good spot for that value raise. Unfortunately, he showed up with the goods and we take an L on this one. Well, another vlog in the books. I hope you enjoyed this one. Who got the mystery hand right? If you did, congrats. If you didn't, drop something in the comments below. Let me know what you thought we had. It's always good to bounce ideas and hands off of each other. That's how we all get better. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. It's holiday season, so spend time with your family responsibly. And just remember one thing. Don't be stuck like a duck. Run like Usain Bolt. Peace.